What's your name, please?
My name is Alfred Whittacre. I'm from Manchester, Maryland.
And how did you get involved with genealogy? And did you ever know anything about Fort Wayne before? Is this your first time coming to Fort Wayne?
This is my first time coming to Fort Wayne. It's a very hospitable and friendly town. I'm really impressed with the way your library is set up, with everything on one floor, all the resources that one would need to do research, and it's a pleasure to be here.
You know, is that what makes it special? Because I haven't been to a lot of other libraries to do any research like this.
Any of the other places that I've been, and I've been to the one in North Carolina, D.C., all of the governmental places in D.C. doing research, down in Virginia, Portsmouth, Virginia, Southampton County, Virginia. You do have to move around a lot when you go to those places because their resources are in different locations. At the library here, everything is on the same floor. You simply have to move across the room to verify a resource. I think it's a marvelous way you have that set up.
How long have you been interested in genealogy?
About 20 years now. I used to listen to the stories that my grandmother told about her childhood, and when I got older, I wanted to know something about the names of the people that she talked about, the places that she talked about. And so I started to go back to the courthouses, to the areas where I played as a baby in my great-grandmother's yard. I didn't know then that where she lived was actually the old Indian reservation. Okay, I did not know that, but she was the last living resident on that reservation. So I was interested in knowing the facts about that existence, okay? So that's why I got interested, and that's how I got started.
Okay, now, your folks are from Maryland. Now, have you always been in Maryland, or did you migrate to there from somewhere else?
When I was 5 years old, my father moved from Portsmouth, Virginia to Baltimore, Maryland, because it was at the start of the war, 1938-39, and they were hiring blacks in places like the Bethlehem steel mill, okay? Before that, most of the blacks worked in field work, down south mostly, but things started to open up as the manpower situation shifted, okay? When you had less people available for needed jobs, they started to then take blacks into areas that they had never worked before. And my father was one of those people who came from south to north to get a job, and he moved the family here then, back in 1938.
You know, in your time of doing this, what has been the most intellectually astounding fact that you never knew until you started doing this work?
Okay, one of the things is I had heard my grandmother say that we're not like those people, we're Indians, but she wasn't talking to me, the baby, sitting on the front steps. She was talking to her sisters, okay, who were my great aunts, okay? And so I just took it that Grandma had, slipped the notch, because to a 2 or 3 year old child, 35 or 40 was ancient, okay? And so I just thought, well, because we didn't look like, the phenotype Indian, like the Lone Ranger and Tonto with straight hair and what have you. I didn't know that in 1922 in Virginia, they passed an act which declared that if you were not white, then you were colored. And so that's what all of the people of color were referred to as colored people. But there is no race called colored. There is no land from which colored comes from. And so we did have an ethnic origin, but I didn't know it then, okay? It was an ingenious idea for the other people because it ruled out traceability. You couldn't trace your ethnic origin if you didn't know precisely what you were, okay? And of course you had all kinds of mixtures, people from Africa, people from other parts of the world who were shaded different shades of brown. And it wasn't until I started to do research and I saw my great-grandmother's name listed early on before 1922, listed as Indian, okay? Now, I didn't need any more than that. I knew Grandma wasn't crazy, and I knew that she was on to something, all right? So that's how I got started, and I've been adding on ever since.
So what tribe did you find that you were from?
Nottoway. The Nottoway Indians of Southampton County is my tribe. I go to the powwows every year, and it's a joy to be surrounded by people whose history is similar to mine. Now, that's not to rule out the African part, okay, because my father's ancestors were from Ghana, okay, and I celebrate that rich, deep history also.
Now, how'd you find that?
I took a test. They swab your cheek and you send it off to some laboratory, and they do the things that they do, and they come back with where your likely DNA originated from, okay? Dr. Kittle runs an organization, and I had my DNA run through his African ancestor company, okay? And it came back with beautiful certificates. Not only did he tell me where my daddy was from, but he told me that indeed you are part Indian, okay, because I had the mitochondria DNA done and the Y chromosome, which traces the female data, and of course the Y chromosome traces, the male. So I had a whole chapter just from that one exercise that I didn't have before. Plus I had documents now that I could verify to anybody who had doubt that we did have history dating back that far, okay?
Before you started on this work, have you ever had any specialized training in research?
No, this was kind of something that I just started on my own. Of course, now with the computer, it seems like everybody is an expert in it because the resources are so easily at hand, okay? You can sit in one place and do what it took me years to do, climbing up and down courthouse steps or office buildings, the clerk's office to get documents or what have you. A lot of that information now you can get if you know how to deal on the computer. You can get it in a relatively short time. It took me years to collect some of the information that I have.
It seems like your experience of doing this has been a pretty much eye-opening, enlightening experience. But did you ever go through a tough time when you hit a brick wall, and you had to really figure out a way how to get around a certain obstacle?
Yeah. Any kind of work that you're doing in this area, you're going to run into those brick walls, okay? But at times like that, you set your work on the side, and because there are always other avenues, always other things. If you can't find a specific answer to a problem dealing with your particular family or group or ancestor, there's always the history of the area that you come from, and that is very important. So to know the history that was taking place at the time that your ancestors were living there adds a whole new chapter to who they were. It tells you what they were going through. If you were a baby and you remember your grandmother laughing and joking with you out in the yard, you can add now on to the worries that she must have been having, wondering if the man was going to come and claim the land that they had been living on forever, which happened in my case, by the way. One day they just came and said, you people got to move. This land belongs to the county, okay? So to know that she was going through these terrible times and even managing to smile and to play with us and tell old stories and that kind of thing adds a new chapter to who that magnificent person was, okay? It's a different appreciation than I had as a baby looking up at her, okay? And now I've sort of put some flesh on the bones that I didn't have before because I now know the background upon which she was living, okay?
So, as you look back at this many years of you going through all this research, what does it mean to have knowledge of your ancestry and of your roots? What does it mean?
Oh, I tell you, it's the difference between night and day. It has added an entirely new chapter to who I thought I was versus who I know I am now, okay? Before you listened to what other people said and they kind of defined you. Now I define who I am because of the knowledge and background that I have gathered from my research. It adds a whole new wrinkle to my personality. Makes you, when you come up against tough times and things are not going right in my life, I think about how would my grandmother handle this, because certainly I'm living in a time that's far more better than she was, and she got through her time with her mind intact, shoulders back. She was the straightest walking person I ever seen, okay? Big smile on her face. If she got through those times intact, then certainly whatever I'm facing today is small stuff, okay? So that's the kind of knowledge it has given me, the kind of strength it has given me to live this life in this time.
Mr. Whittacre, thank you very much.
Thank you.